The phone rang at 2 in the morning, and I knew. You always know, don't you? That particular kind of ringing that cuts through sleep like a knife, the sound that means something is shattered beyond repair. I fumbled for it in the darkness, my heart already racing before I even saw my son's name on the screen. Mom? His voice was hollow, empty in a way I'd never heard before. It's Vanessa, she's gone. Gone. Such a small word to carry so much weight. I sat up, the room spinning slightly as sleep fled and adrenaline took its place. What do you mean gone, Marcus? Gone where? Just gone. She left a note. Said she couldn't do this anymore, couldn't be a mother, couldn't be a wife. She said she was suffocating and she had to leave. His voice cracked on that last word, and I heard something I hadn't heard since he was a little boy. My son was crying. I was already out of bed, already pulling on clothes with one hand while I held the phone with the other. Where are you? Where's Lily? We're at home. Lily's asleep, thank God. She doesn't know yet. Mom, I don't understand. Yesterday, everything was fine. We had dinner together, we watched a movie, we put Lily to bed, and then this morning I wake up and Vanessa's car is gone. Half her clothes are gone, and there's just this note on the kitchen counter. I grabbed my keys, my purse, everything I could think of. I'm coming over right now. Don't wake Lily. We'll figure this out together. The drive to Marcus's house took 35 minutes, but it felt like hours. My mind raced through every conversation I'd had with Vanessa over the past few months, searching for signs I'd missed. Had she seemed distant, unhappy? I'd been a therapist for 28 years before I retired. Surely I should have seen something. But Vanessa had always been good at wearing masks, at showing people exactly what they wanted to see. Marcus and Vanessa had been married for 6 years. They'd met at a charity fundraiser where Marcus was doing pro bono legal work for a women's shelter. Vanessa had been volunteering there too, and I remember thinking how perfect they seemed together, both passionate about helping others, both kind and generous. When Lily was born 3 years ago, I thought they'd found there forever. I'd watched Vanessa hold that baby in the hospital, tears streaming down her face, whispering, I love you, I love you, I love you, over and over. How does someone go from that to just leaving? Marcus's neighborhood was dark and quiet when I pulled up. Only his porch light was on, a single beacon in the surrounding darkness. He opened the door before I could knock, and the sight of him broke my heart. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in a single night. His eyes were red and swollen, his hair was sticking up in every direction, and he was still wearing the same clothes he'd probably worn yesterday. Mom, he said, and then he was in my arms, this tall, strong man who'd grown up to be so capable and confident, reduced to a broken shell by the woman he'd loved. I held him the way I'd held him when he was 5 and had fallen off his bike, the way I'd held him at 13 when his best friend moved away, the way I'd held him at his father's funeral when he was 18. I've got you, I whispered. I've got you, baby. We're going to figure this out. Inside, the house looked normal. That was almost worse somehow, the normalcy of it all. Lily's toys were scattered across the living room floor. There were dishes in the sink from dinner the night before. A load of laundry sat half folded on the couch. It looked like someone had just stepped away for a moment and would be right back. But they wouldn't be, would they? Marcus handed me the note. It was written on plain white paper in Vanessa's careful handwriting. The kind of handwriting they don't teach anymore, all loops and curves. Marcus, I can't do this anymore. I've tried so hard to be the person you need me to be. The mother Lily deserves, but I'm drowning. Every day I wake up and feel the walls closing in a little more. I never wanted this life. The house in the suburbs, the routine, the endless sameness of every single day. I need to find myself again. I need to remember who I was before I became someone's wife and someone's mother. I'm sorry. I know this is selfish. I know this will hurt you and hurt Lily, but if I stay, I'll disappear completely, and I can't let that happen. Please don't try to find me. I'll reach out when I'm ready. 5. I read it twice, then a third time, searching for something between the lines. But there was nothing there except selfishness wrapped in pseudo-therapeutic language. I'd seen this before in my practice. People who convinced themselves that their own comfort was more important than the devastation they'd leave behind. Has she done anything like this before? I asked carefully. Talked about feeling trapped or wanting to leave? Marcus shook his head, sinking onto the couch. No, I mean, she's been stressed lately. Her photography business wasn't doing as well as she'd hoped, and she was spending a lot of time on her phone, but I thought she was just networking, trying to drum up clients. She seemed fine, Mom. She seemed happy. What about her phone? Did she take it? Yeah, and her laptop. I tried calling, but it goes straight to voicemail. I texted, I sent emails, nothing. I sat down beside him, my mind already moving through possibilities. Okay, let's think about this logically. She took her car, her clothes, her phone, her laptop. Did she take anything else? Money? Credit cards? Marcus ran his hands through his hair. I checked the bank account. She withdrew $5,000 2 days ago. I didn't think anything of it at the time. She sometimes needed cash for photography equipment or location fees. But now? $5,000. Enough to disappear for a while if you were careful. Enough to make a clean break. What about her friends? Have you talked to any of? I called her best friend Sarah around midnight. She said she hadn't heard from Vanessa in a few days, but that wasn't unusual. I didn't tell her what happened. I didn't know what to say. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the situation settling over us like a heavy blanket. Then, from upstairs, we heard a small voice. Daddy? Marcus's face crumpled. I don't know what to tell her. Tell her the truth, I said softly, an age-appropriate version, but the truth. Kids know when you're lying to them, and it only makes things scarier. We went upstairs together. Lily was sitting up in her bed, clutching her stuffed elephant, the one Vanessa had bought for her at the zoo last summer. She was 3 years old, with her father's dark curls and her mother's green eyes. She looked so small in that moment, so vulnerable. Hey, sweetheart, Marcus said, sitting on the edge of her bed. What are you doing awake? I had a bad dream, Lily said, her voice still thick with sleep. Where's Mommy? Marcus looked at me, and I nodded encouragingly. He took a deep breath. Mommy had to go away for a little while, baby. She needed some time to herself. When is she coming back? I don't know yet. But Grandma's here, and we're going to take really good care of you until Mommy comes home, okay? Lily's lower lip trembled. Did I do something bad? Is Mommy mad at me? Oh, no, baby. Marcus pulled her into his arms, and I saw tears sliding down his cheeks. No, this has nothing to do with you. Mommy loves you so much. This is grown-up stuff, okay? Sometimes adults need time to think about things. But you didn't do anything wrong. You're perfect. I watched them together, my heart breaking for both of them. Lily was too young to understand abandonment, too young to grasp the concept that sometimes people we love make choices that hurt us deeply. But she'd learn. God, she'd learn. After we got Lily back to sleep, Marcus and I sat at the kitchen table nursing cups of coffee that neither of us really wanted. The sun was starting to come up, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. A new day dawning on a completely different reality. What do I do, Mom? Marcus asked. Do I call the police? Report her missing? She's not missing, I said carefully. She left voluntarily. She's an adult who made a choice. The police won't do anything, so I just... What? Wait? Hope she comes back? I reached across the table and took his hand. You take care of Lily. You go to work. You live your life. And you give yourself permission to be angry, because, Marcus, you have every right to be furious about this. I love her, he said, his voice breaking. I still love her. How pathetic is that? It's not pathetic, it's human. Love doesn't just turn off like a switch, even when someone hurts us. I squeezed his hand. But Marcus, I need you to hear this. Whatever happens next, whatever Vanessa does or doesn't do, your job is to protect Lily. She's the priority now. He nodded, wiping his eyes. I know. I keep thinking about all the signs I must have missed. All the times she probably wanted to tell me she was unhappy and I was too busy or too oblivious to notice. Don't do that to yourself. You can't read minds. If Vanessa was unhappy, it was her responsibility to communicate that, to work with you to find solutions. Instead, she ran. That's on her, not you. We talked until the sun was fully up and Lily woke again, calling for breakfast. I made pancakes while Marcus helped her get dressed, and we all tried to pretend this was a normal morning, a normal day. But Lily kept looking toward the door, kept asking when Mommy would be home, and each time Marcus had to tell her he didn't know, I saw another piece of him break. I stayed with them for 3 days. I called my own commitments and canceled everything. Nothing was more important than being there for my son and granddaughter. We established a routine. Breakfast, playtime, lunch, nap time, more playtime, dinner, bath, bedtime. Marcus went to work for a few hours each day, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy, while I stayed with Lily. She was clingy in a way she'd never been before, always wanting to know where I was, always needing reassurance that I wasn't going to disappear too. On the third day, Marcus got a text from Vanessa. Just one line. I'm safe. I need more time. Please respect that. He showed me the message, his hands shaking. That's it? That's all she has to say? I looked at those cold, clinical words and felt something harden in my chest. This wasn't the behavior of someone having a mental health crisis. This was calculated. This was someone who'd made a choice and didn't care about the collateral damage. Marcus, I said carefully, I think you need to talk to a lawyer. A lawyer? Mom, I don't want to divorce her. I want to fix this. I know, baby, but you need to protect yourself and Lily. You need to know what your rights are, what your options are. This isn't about giving up on Vanessa. This is about making sure you're prepared for whatever happens next. He was quiet for a long time, staring at that text message. Then he nodded slowly. Okay, you're right. That night, after Lily was asleep, I made a decision. I was going to find out what was really going on with Vanessa. Not for her sake, but for Marcus's. For Lily's. Because something about this whole situation didn't sit right with me. The timing, the coldness of that note, the way she'd withdrawn that money. I'd spent nearly 3 decades helping people work through their problems, helping them find themselves when they felt lost. But I'd also learned to recognize when someone was running from something rather than towards something. And every instinct I had was screaming that Vanessa was running. The question was, from what? I went home the next day, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I kept coming back to that note, to the phrase, I never wanted this life. Had Vanessa always felt that way? Had she been pretending for 6 years? Or had something changed recently? I decided to do some digging. I started with social media. Not Vanessa's public accounts, but the deeper stuff. I created a fake profile and started looking through her followers, her likes, her comments. It took me a few days, but eventually I found something interesting. About 3 months ago, Vanessa had started following a man named Derek Chen. He was a travel photographer, the kind of person whose Instagram was full of beautiful landscapes and exotic locations. The kind of life that would look very appealing to someone who felt trapped in suburbia. I scrolled through his photos, and then I saw it. A comment from Vanessa on a photo he'd posted from Thailand. This looks like paradise. Some of us dream of escaping to places like this. And his response, dreams can become reality if you're brave enough. My stomach dropped. I kept scrolling, looking for more interactions, and I found them. Scattered comments over the past 3 months, getting progressively more familiar. Nothing overtly romantic, but there was an intimacy there that made me uncomfortable. I screenshotted everything and sent it to Marcus with a message. I think you need to see this. He called me 30 minutes later. Who is this guy? I don't know yet. But I'm going to find out. It took me another week of research, but I finally pieced together Derek Chen's story. He was 34 years old, originally from San Francisco, currently living in Seattle. He'd been married once before, divorced 3 years ago. His ex-wife had a blog where she'd written about their relationship, about how Derek had been charming and romantic at first, but how he'd gradually become controlling and manipulative. How he'd isolated her from her friends and family, how he'd convinced her to quit her job to travel with him, how he'd drained her savings account before finally leaving her stranded in Morocco. The blog had been taken down, but I found archived versions. I read every post, my horror growing with each one. This wasn't just an affair. This was a predator who'd found a vulnerable target. I called Marcus immediately. You need to come over, now, and bring any financial documents you have, bank statements, credit card bills, investment accounts, everything. Mom, what's going on? Just trust me, please. When Marcus arrived an hour later, I spread all my research out on my dining room table, the screenshots, the blog posts, everything I'd found about Derek Chen. Marcus stood there, reading through it all, his face growing paler with each page. You think Vanessa's with this guy? He asked finally. I think she's being manipulated by him. Look at the timeline, Marcus. 3 months ago, she starts following him. 2 months ago, their comments start getting more frequent. 1 month ago, she starts pulling away from you emotionally. 3 days ago, she withdraws $5,000 and disappears. This isn't a woman who decided she needed to find herself. This is a woman who's been groomed by a con artist. Marcus sank into a chair, his head in his hands. So what do I do? How do I help her if she won't talk to me? We find her, I said simply, and we make sure she knows what she's gotten herself into before it's too late. But finding Vanessa turned out to be harder than I'd anticipated. Derek Chen didn't post his locations in real time. He was too smart for that. His Instagram showed beautiful places, but they were always from weeks or months ago. Vanessa's accounts had gone completely dark. Her phone still went straight to voicemail. Her credit cards showed no activity. A month passed. Then 2. Marcus hired a private investigator, but they came up empty. It was like Vanessa had vanished into thin air. Lily stopped asking when Mommy was coming home and started having nightmares instead. She'd wake up crying, calling for Vanessa, and Marcus would hold her until she fell back asleep, exhausted and heartbroken. I watched my son try to hold everything together. His job, his daughter, his sanity. I watched him put on a brave face during the day and fall apart at night when Lily couldn't see. And I felt helpless, unable to fix this, unable to protect him from this pain. Then, 3 months after Vanessa left, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Patricia Coleman?" The voice was female, young, uncertain. "Yes, who's calling?" "My name is Emma. Emma Chen. I think your daughter-in-law might be in trouble." My hand tightened around the phone. "Emma Chen? Are you related to Derek Chen?" There was a pause, then a shaky breath. "He's my brother. Look, I don't know if I should even be calling you, but I found your son's number in Derek's phone records, and I think something really bad is happening." I grabbed a pen and paper. "Tell me everything. Start from the beginning." "Okay, so Derek and I aren't close. We haven't been for years, not since his divorce. But he called me about 2 months ago, said he'd met someone special and they were planning to travel together. He asked if he could store some boxes at my place in Portland while they were gone. I said yes because, well, he's still my brother, you know." "What was in the boxes?" I didn't look at first, but then last week, one of them fell over and spilled everywhere. There were documents, legal documents, marriage certificates, birth certificates, financial papers, all for a woman named Vanessa Coleman. And there was other stuff too, jewelry, photo albums, things that looked personal, important. Why would someone leave all that behind if they were just traveling? My heart was pounding. "What else did you find?" "A laptop. I know I shouldn't have, but I opened it. It wasn't password protected. There were emails between Derek and Vanessa going back months. At first they seemed normal, flirty, romantic, all that stuff. But then they got weird. Derek was telling her she needed to cut ties with her old life completely, that her husband was holding her back, that her daughter would be fine without her, that she needed to prove she was serious about starting fresh. Emma, where are they now? Where's Vanessa? That's the thing. I don't know. Derek told me they were going to Costa Rica, but I found a receipt in one of the boxes for a storage unit here in Portland, Unit 247 at Secure Lock Storage on Burnside Street. Mrs. Coleman, I looked up your daughter-in-law. I saw pictures of her with her little girl, and I have a bad feeling. My brother, he's done things like this before. He finds women who are vulnerable, who are unhappy, and he convinces them to leave everything behind. And then what?" Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "And then they disappear, and he shows up a few months later with a new girlfriend, and the cycle starts again. I tried to tell his ex-wife that I suspected something was wrong before she left with him, but she wouldn't listen. She thought I was just jealous or trying to cause problems. By the time she escaped and came back, Derek had taken everything from her. Her money, her passport, her dignity. She was broken. I felt sick. Have you gone to the police? With what? I don't have proof of anything illegal. Just a bad feeling and some suspicious emails. But if you could check that storage unit, maybe there's something there that could help." "Give me the address," I said, already grabbing my keys. Emma rattled off the information, then hesitated. "Mrs. Coleman, please be careful. If Derek finds out I called you, I don't know what he'd do. I'll be careful. And Emma, thank you. You might have just saved someone's life." I called Marcus the moment I hung up. "Don't ask questions, just meet me at this address in Portland. Bring a bolt cutter and a flashlight." "Mom, what?" "Marcus, please. Just trust me." The drive to Portland took 2 hours. Marcus met me in the parking lot of Secure Lock Storage, and I could see the questions in his eyes, but he waited patiently as I explained everything Emma had told me. With each word, his face grew harder, anger replacing the grief that had lived there for 3 months. "He manipulated her," Marcus said flatly. "He targeted her and manipulated her into abandoning her family." "Yes," I agreed. "But Marcus, there's something else. Emma said women disappear with Derek. What if Vanessa didn't just run away? What if she's in danger?" We found Unit 247 on the 2nd floor, tucked away in a corner. It had a heavy padlock securing it, but Marcus made quick work of it with the bolt cutters. The door rolled up with a metallic screech that echoed through the empty hallway. Inside, the unit was maybe 10 feet by 10 feet, packed with boxes and plastic storage containers. We stood there for a moment, overwhelmed by the sheer amount of stuff. Then Marcus stepped forward and opened the nearest box. It was full of women's clothes. Designer brands, expensive fabrics. But they weren't Vanessa's size. They were too small. He opened another box. More clothes, different sizes this time. A third box contained shoes, at least 20 pairs, all different sizes. These aren't all Vanessa's, I said slowly, a cold dread settling in my stomach. Marcus was already opening more boxes, moving faster now, more frantic. Photos, dozens of photo albums and loose pictures, women with Derek smiling at exotic locations. Different women in each album. Some looked happy, some looked wrong, too thin, eyes too bright or too dull, smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. Oh my God, Marcus breathed. How many women has he done this to? I was going through a file box pulling out documents, driver's licenses, passports, social security cards, all for different women. Some of the licenses were expired by years. Marcus, we need to call the police. Right now. But Marcus wasn't listening. He'd found something in the back corner of the unit, hidden under a tarp. He pulled it away, and we both froze. It was a safe. A large, heavy-duty safe with a digital keypad. We need to get this open, Marcus said, his voice shaking. We need to call the police first, I insisted. Marcus, this is evidence. We can't contaminate it. He looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. A desperate, wild fear. Mom, what if she's in there? What if Vanessa's... She's not, I said firmly, though my own hands were shaking. It's not big enough. But there might be information about where she is. Marcus pulled out his phone and dialed 911. I need police at Secure Lock Storage, 4250 Burnside Street in Portland, Unit 247. We found evidence of multiple missing persons. The operator's voice was calm, professional. Sir, what kind of evidence? Personal belongings, identification documents for at least a dozen different women, and a locked safe. Please, my wife might be one of them. She's been missing for 3 months. Officers are on the way. Sir, I need you to exit the storage unit and wait in the parking lot. Don't touch anything else. We did as we were told, standing in the cold Portland drizzle, watching the entrance to the facility. Marcus kept pacing, his hands clenched into fists. If he hurt her, if he hurt Vanessa, Don't, I said quietly. Don't go there. Not yet. We don't know anything for sure. But we both knew. We both understood what we'd stumbled into. This wasn't just a con artist targeting lonely women. This was something much darker. The police arrived 15 minutes later. 2 patrol cars at first, then a detective sedan, then more cars with more officers. Detective Sarah Brennan was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She listened to our story, took Emma's contact information, and then led a team into the storage unit. We waited for over an hour. Finally, Detective Brennan came back out, her face grim. Mr. Coleman, Mrs. Coleman, I need you to come down to the station and make a formal statement. What you found here, this is going to be a major investigation. My wife, Marcus said immediately. Is there any information about my wife? Vanessa Coleman? Detective Brennan's expression softened slightly. We found documents with her name, and a laptop that appears to have belonged to her. Our tech team is going to go through everything, but I have to be honest with you. What we're seeing in that unit suggests a pattern of behavior that's deeply concerning. Some of the identification we found belongs to women who've been reported missing over the past 5 years. The words hit like a physical blow. Marcus staggered, and I grabbed his arm to steady him. You're saying Derek Chen is connected to missing women? I'm saying we need to find him as quickly as possible, and we need to find out what happened to all these women, including your wife. At the police station, we spent hours going through everything. Marcus provided Vanessa's information, the timeline of her disappearance, the emails and social media conversations I'd found. Detective Brennan listened intently, taking notes, asking questions. The safe, I asked at one point, what was in it? Detective Brennan hesitated, then said carefully, I can't share all the details of an ongoing investigation, but I can tell you that we found cash, a lot of cash, and more personal items that we're working to identify and return to their rightful owners. But nothing that tells you where they are, where Vanessa is, not yet. But we're working on it. Emma Chen was brought in for questioning separately. I saw her in the hallway at one point. A small woman in her 30s with her brother's dark hair, but kind eyes that were filled with fear and guilt. She looked at me and mouthed, "I'm sorry." I nodded at her. She'd done the right thing. She'd reached out. That took courage. By the time we left the station, it was nearly midnight. Marcus drove us back to my car in silence. When we reached the parking lot, he finally spoke. "What do I tell Lily?" "The truth," I said. "An age-appropriate version, but the truth. That the police are looking for Mommy, that we're all working very hard to find her and bring her home safely." "What if we don't find her?" His voice broke. What if we're too late?" I took his face in my hands, forcing him to look at me. "Then we deal with that when it happens. But right now we have hope. The police are involved. They're going to find Derek Chen. And when they do, we're going to get answers." Over the next few days, the investigation exploded. The media got hold of the story. Local woman missing, connected to suspected serial con artist. Derek Chen's face was plastered on every news channel, every website. The FBI got involved. Vanessa's photo appeared alongside pictures of 7 other missing women, all believed to be connected to Derek. Marcus's phone rang constantly. Reporters, old friends, people offering support or asking invasive questions. He stopped answering after the first day, letting everything go to voicemail. His law firm gave him a leave of absence. His world had narrowed to 2 things, Lily and finding Vanessa. I moved in with them temporarily, helping with Lily, fielding calls, trying to maintain some sense of normalcy for my granddaughter. But Lily wasn't stupid. She heard the news reports when Marcus forgot to turn off the TV. She heard him crying in his room at night. She knew something terrible was happening, even if she didn't understand what. One night, about a week after we'd found the storage unit, Lily climbed into my lap while I was sitting in the living room. "Grandma, is Mommy dead?" The question pierced straight through my heart. "Oh, sweetheart, we don't know where Mommy is right now, but a lot of people are looking for her." But the TV said, "They said that man makes ladies disappear. Does that mean Mommy's gone forever?" I held her tight, this precious little girl who'd had her innocence stolen too soon. "It means we don't know yet. But your daddy and I and all the police officers, we're not going to stop looking until we find her, okay?" "Okay," she whispered. But I could feel her trembling, could feel her fear radiating through that small body. That night, after I put Lily to bed, I found Marcus standing in his bedroom, holding one of Vanessa's sweaters. "I can't smell her anymore," he said softly. "Her perfume, it's faded. It's like she's already becoming a ghost. Marcus, I should have known," he continued, his voice hollow. "I'm a lawyer. I'm supposed to be good at reading people, at seeing through lies. But I looked at her every single day for months, and I didn't see that she was unhappy. I didn't see that she was planning to leave. How did I miss it?" "Because you're human," I said gently. "Because you loved her and you trusted her. That's not a weakness, Marcus. That's what makes you a good person. A good person whose wife is missing, possibly dead because he was too blind to see what was right in front of him. Stop it." My voice was sharper than I'd intended. "Derek Chen is a predator. He's done this before. He knows exactly how to find vulnerable people, how to exploit their weaknesses, how to make them believe. He's offering them something better. This is not your fault. It's not Vanessa's fault. It's his." Marcus crumpled onto the bed, still clutching that sweater. "I just want her back, Mom. Even after everything. I just want her to come home. I want Lily to have her mother. I want us to be a family again." I sat beside him, putting my arm around his shoulders. "I know, baby. I know." 3 days later, Detective Brennan called. We found him. Marcus and I rushed to the police station. Detective Brennan met us in the lobby, her expression carefully neutral. Derek Chen was arrested this morning at a hotel in Vancouver, Canada. He was attempting to cross the border using a fake passport. "Was Vanessa with him?" Marcus asked immediately. "No, he was alone. We've got him in custody now, and he's being questioned. But Mr. Coleman, I need to prepare you. He's not talking. He's lawyered up, and he's refusing to answer any questions about the missing women. So we're no closer to finding her," Marcus said, his voice dead. "Not exactly. We seized his phone, his laptop, and his vehicle. Our tech team is going through everything now. We also got a warrant for his financial records. If Vanessa's alive and he's been supporting her somewhere, or if he's made transactions related to her, we'll find it." "And if he hasn't?" I asked. "If there's no electronic trail?" Detective Brennan looked at me, and I saw the truth in her eyes before she spoke it. Then we start looking for bodies. The next few weeks were a special kind of hell. Every day we waited for news. Every day Marcus's phone would ring and we'd all freeze, hoping it was Detective Brennan with information. And every day it was someone else. Reporters, well-meaning friends, Vanessa's family members demanding updates. The tech team went through Derek's devices meticulously. They found emails, text messages, financial transactions spanning years, evidence of fraud, identity theft, extortion, but nothing definitive about where the missing women were. Then, nearly a month after Derek's arrest, Detective Brennan called with news. We found something. Bank transfers. Derek was sending money to a property management company in Mexico, $500 a month for the past 3 months, starting right around the time Vanessa disappeared. Mexico? Marcus stood up so fast his chair fell over. She's in Mexico? We don't know for sure, but we've contacted Mexican authorities and we're working with them to investigate the property. It's a small villa in Puerto Vallarta. Remote, private, the kind of place someone might go if they wanted to disappear. I'm going down there, Marcus said immediately. I'm going to find her. Mr. Coleman, you need to let law enforcement handle this. If she's there and she's being held against her will, you could put yourself and her in danger by intervening. But I could see the determination in my son's face. When? He asked. When are Mexican police going to search the property? They're getting a warrant now. It should happen within the next 48 hours. 48 hours felt like an eternity. Marcus couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. He kept Lily home from preschool because he couldn't bear to let her out of his sight. We all existed in a state of suspended animation, waiting for the call that would tell us whether Vanessa was alive or dead, victim or accomplice. The call came at 6 a.m. on the second day. I heard Marcus's phone ring from the guest room where I was staying, heard his footsteps running down the hall. I threw on a robe and followed. Marcus was in the kitchen, his phone pressed to his ear, his face unreadable. Yes, he was saying. Yes, I understand. Thank you. Thank you. He hung up and looked at me, and I saw tears streaming down his face. They found her. She's alive. I felt my knees go weak with relief. Oh, thank God. Thank God. She's in a hospital in Puerto Vallarta. Detective Brennan said she's malnourished and dehydrated. She's been living in that villa with no money, no phone, no way to leave. Derek took her passport, her credit cards, everything. He told her if she tried to leave or contact anyone, he'd hurt Lily, that he had people watching our house, watching Lily at preschool. Oh, Marcus, I breathed. She must have been terrified, Detective Brennan said when the police broke in. Vanessa just collapsed. She couldn't believe someone had actually found her. She thought she was going to die there. His voice broke. I need to go to her, Mom. I need to see her, to bring her home. Then go, I said. I'll stay with Lily. You go bring your wife home. Marcus left that afternoon on the first flight to Puerto Vallarta. I stayed with Lily, and when she asked where Daddy had gone, I told her the truth. He went to get Mommy. The police found her, and she's safe now. Lily's face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in months. Mommy's coming home? Yes, baby. Mommy's coming home. Marcus called me from the hospital in Puerto Vallarta. His voice was thick with emotion, barely holding it together. Mom, God, she's so thin, she can barely stand. And her eyes, she looks haunted. Is she talking? Does she remember what happened? She remembers everything. That's almost worse, I think. She knows exactly what she did, what she left behind. And she can't believe we found her. She keeps asking if Lily's okay, if Lily's safe. Derek convinced her that he had people watching Lily, that if Vanessa tried to escape or contact anyone, something would happen to our daughter. I closed my eyes, imagining the torture Vanessa must have endured. To be trapped, isolated, believing your child was in danger and there was nothing you could do. When are you bringing her home? The doctors want to keep her another day or two. She's severely dehydrated. Her electrolytes are all wrong. She's lost almost 30 pounds. They want to stabilize her before she travels. But Mom, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to help her. You just love her, I said softly. You be patient and you love her. The rest will come. What if she can't forgive herself? What if she looks at Lily and all she can see is the fact that she left her? Then you remind her that she didn't leave Lily. She was taken from Lily. There's a difference, Marcus. A big difference. We talked for another few minutes before he had to go. The doctors needed to run more tests, and Vanessa needed to rest. I hung up and sat in the quiet living room of their house, thinking about all the ways trauma reshapes a person. I'd seen it in my practice countless times. People who'd been through unimaginable things, who came out the other side changed in fundamental ways. The question was always whether they could integrate what happened to them, or whether it would consume them. That night, I told Lily that Mommy was coming home soon. But sweetheart, I need you to understand something. Mommy has been sick. She's been away and she wasn't able to eat good food or take care of herself. So when she comes home, she might look a little different. She might be very tired. And we all need to be very gentle with her, okay? Lily nodded solemnly. Like when I had the flu and I had to rest? Yes, exactly like that. Mommy needs lots of rest and lots of love. I can give her love, Lily said confidently. I'm very good at love. My heart squeezed. Yes, baby. You're the best at love. Marcus and Vanessa came home 3 days later. I was waiting with Lily when they pulled into the driveway. The moment Lily saw the car, she bolted for the door, but I caught her. Remember what we talked about. Gentle, okay? She nodded, bouncing on her toes with barely contained excitement. When the front door opened and Vanessa stepped through, I heard Lily's sharp intake of breath. Vanessa looked like a shadow of herself. Her clothes hung off her frame, her cheekbones were sharp and pronounced, and her eyes had dark circles beneath them. But when she saw Lily, those eyes filled with tears and she dropped to her knees. Lily, oh my baby girl. Lily hesitated for just a moment, then ran into her mother's arms. Vanessa held her so tight I was afraid she might hurt her, sobbing into Lily's hair. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Mommy loves you so much. I'm so sorry. Lily pulled back, her small hands cupping Vanessa's face. It's okay, Mommy, you were sick, but you're home now. Grandma said you need rest and love, and I have lots of love for you. Vanessa let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. You do? You still love me? Of course, Lily said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. You're my mommy. I watched Marcus watching them, and I saw the moment something broke in him. All the anger, all the fear, all the hurt of the past few months. It cracked open, and what poured out was just love. Pure, unconditional love for his broken wife and his resilient daughter. Over the next few days, we established a new routine. Vanessa slept a lot, 14, 16 hours a day sometimes. When she was awake, she was quiet, moving through the house like a ghost. She'd sit with Lily, reading to her or coloring, but there was a distance in her eyes, like part of her was still in that villa in Mexico. Marcus took more time off work. He stayed close, never pushing, just making sure Vanessa knew he was there. They didn't talk about what happened at first. The doctors had recommended trauma counseling, and Vanessa had agreed, but she wasn't ready to process everything yet. I stayed with them for 2 weeks, helping with Lily, cooking meals, trying to create a sense of normalcy. But I could see the cracks forming. Vanessa would have panic attacks in the middle of the night, convinced someone was breaking in. She couldn't be alone. Not for even a few minutes. If Marcus went to the store and I was busy with Lily, Vanessa would spiral into terror. One night, I found her in the kitchen at 3 a.m, sitting on the floor with her back against the cabinets, her arms wrapped around her knees. Vanessa? I said softly, not wanting to startle her. She looked up at me, and in the dim light from the street lamp outside, I could see tear tracks on her cheeks. I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back there, in that villa, listening for his car, wondering if this would be the day he decided I wasn't useful anymore. I sat down beside her on the cold tile floor. Do you want to talk about it? She was quiet for a long time. Then, slowly, she started speaking. It started so innocently. Derek was he was charming. He made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. I love Marcus, I love Lily, but I was drowning in routine and responsibility. I felt like I'd disappeared into being someone's wife, someone's mother, and Derek made me feel like myself again. He targeted you, I said gently. That's what predators do. They find people who are vulnerable and they exploit that vulnerability. I know that now, but at the time, I thought I was making a choice. I thought I was choosing adventure, choosing freedom. He convinced me that leaving was the only way to be happy, that Marcus and Lily would be fine without me, that I deserved to prioritize myself. She laughed bitterly. God, I was so stupid. You weren't stupid. You were manipulated by someone who's very, very good at manipulation. I left my daughter, Vanessa said, her voice breaking. I wrote that note and I walked away from my 3-year-old daughter. How do I live with that? How does Lily ever trust me again? Lily loves you. Did you see her face when you came home? She was so happy. Kids are resilient, Vanessa, and she's young enough that this won't define her entire childhood. But you need to do the work. You need to go to therapy, to understand how Derek was able to manipulate you, to make sure it never happens again. Vanessa nodded, wiping her eyes. I'm starting therapy next week. Individual and couples counseling with Marcus. He's been so good about all this. I don't deserve him. Yes, you do. You deserve love and support. You're a victim, Vanessa. Don't forget that. I'm also a woman who abandoned her family. Both things can be true. She was right. Both things were true. The complexity of trauma is that it doesn't excuse everything, but it does explain things. Vanessa would have to live with the choices she'd made while also acknowledging that those choices were made under duress, under manipulation. The therapy helped. Slowly, over the course of months, Vanessa started to come back to herself. She gained weight. The haunted look in her eyes faded. She started laughing again, really laughing, at Lily's jokes or Marcus's terrible puns. They attended couples counseling twice a week, working through the betrayal and the trauma together. But there were setbacks. Vanessa couldn't go into basements. Even the thought of enclosed spaces below ground sent her into a panic attack. She couldn't watch certain movies or TV shows. She changed all her passwords and checked all the locks in the house multiple times a night. She stopped using social media entirely, too afraid of who might find her. And there was the trial. Derek Chen's trial was scheduled to begin 6 months after Vanessa came home. She would have to testify. She would have to relive everything in front of a courtroom full of strangers. The night before she was scheduled to take the stand, Vanessa couldn't eat dinner. She pushed her food around her plate, her hands shaking slightly. Lily noticed. "Mommy, are you sick again?" "No, baby, just nervous about tomorrow." "What's tomorrow?" Vanessa looked at Marcus, then at me, searching for the right words. "Tomorrow, Mommy has to talk to some people about what happened when she was away, about the bad man who hurt me." Lily's face grew serious. "The man who made you sick? Yes. Is he in jail?" "Yes, he is. And tomorrow I'm going to help make sure he stays there so he can't hurt anyone else." Lily thought about this. "That's very brave, Mommy." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, sweetheart." The next morning, we all drove to the courthouse together. Marcus had arranged for his mother to stay with Lily during the trial, but the rest of us, me, Marcus, Vanessa's parents who'd flown in from Arizona, several of Marcus's siblings, we were all there to support her. The courtroom was packed. The case had gotten a lot of media attention. Suburban mom rescued after 3 months in Mexican prison villa. The press had tried to paint Vanessa as either a victim or a villain, with no room for the complicated truth in between. Vanessa took the stand wearing a simple blue dress, her hair pulled back, no makeup except a little concealer to hide the circles under her eyes that never quite went away. She looked small in the witness box, young, scared. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Janet Reardon, led her through her testimony gently. "Mrs. Coleman, can you tell the court how you first met the defendant, Derek Chen?" Vanessa's voice was steady, but I could hear the tremor underneath. "It was through Instagram. I'm a photographer, and I followed his account because his work was beautiful. He started commenting on my photos, asking questions about my techniques. It felt professional at first. When did it become more than professional? About 3 months before I left. He started sending me direct messages, personal things, asking about my life, my dreams, my frustrations. He was easy to talk to. He made me feel understood." "Did you tell your husband about these conversations?" "No, I knew. I knew they were inappropriate, but I told myself it was harmless. Just talking." "When did Derek first suggest that you leave your family?" Vanessa took a shaky breath about 2 months before I left. He said I seemed unhappy, that I was wasting my talent in suburbia. He said I deserved to explore the world, to be free. At first I dismissed it, but he was persistent. He'd send me photos from his travels, tell me stories about the freedom he felt, and slowly I started to believe him. "What happened the night you left?" "Derek told me it had to be sudden. That if I told Marcus I was leaving, he'd convince me to stay. That I needed to make a clean break. He said he'd meet me in Portland and we'd drive to Vancouver, then fly to Mexico. He said we'd travel the world together. That he'd teach me everything he knew about photography. He made it sound like an adventure." "Did you believe him?" Vanessa's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "Yes, I believed him." Janet Reardon pulled up a document on the screen. "Is this the note you left for your husband?" Vanessa looked at it and I saw her face crumple. Yes. Can you read it for the court? I'd rather not, the judge intervened. Mrs. Coleman, I understand this is difficult, but we need your testimony to be complete. Vanessa nodded, wiping her eyes. She read the note, her voice breaking on almost every word. When she finished, she looked at Marcus. I'm so sorry, she said, even though she wasn't supposed to address anyone but the lawyers. I'm so sorry. The judge allowed it. Even he seemed moved by the raw emotion in that courtroom. Janet Reardon continued, What happened after you met Derek in Portland? We drove to Vancouver like he'd said, but when we got there, instead of going to the airport, he took me to a hotel. He said we needed to wait a few days for the heat to die down. That my husband might have reported me missing. I didn't understand why that mattered if I'd left voluntarily, but he made it make sense somehow. He was always so good at that, making his twisted logic sound reasonable. How long were you in Vancouver? 3 days. And during those 3 days, he started changing the rules. He said I needed to give him my phone so he couldn't be tracked. He said I needed to give him my credit cards, my ID, everything. He said it was for security, that we were starting a new life, and I needed to let go of the old one completely. Did you give him those things? Yes. Like an idiot, yes. Mrs. Coleman, you're not an idiot. You were being manipulated by a very skilled predator. What happened after Vancouver? We flew to Mexico City, then took a bus to Puerto Vallarta. Derek had rented a villa. He said it was our base while we planned our travels. It was beautiful. Right on the beach, private, secluded. For the first few days, it felt like paradise. When did things change? Vanessa's hands were shaking now. Marcus leaned forward in his seat, wanting to go to her, but knowing he couldn't. About a week in, I asked when we were going to start traveling. Derek said we needed to wait, that there were some financial things he needed to sort out first. I asked if I could call home, just to check on Lily, to make sure she was okay. He said no. He said if I contacted anyone, it would ruin everything. How did you respond to that? I was upset. I started to realize that maybe I'd made a mistake. I told Derek I wanted to go home, and that's when... Her voice broke completely. That's when everything fell apart. Janet Riordan gave her a moment. The courtroom was dead silent. What happened, Mrs. Coleman? He locked me in. He took all my belongings, including my clothes. He said I wasn't leaving until he said I could. He said he'd put too much work into this, too much planning, and I wasn't going to ruin it by running home like a scared little girl. Did he hurt you physically? Not at first. But he didn't need to. He had my passport, my money, everything. I was in a foreign country where I didn't speak the language fluently in the middle of nowhere. I had no way to escape. What did you do during those 3 months? Vanessa's voice became mechanical, detached. I survived. Derek would bring me food every few days. Never enough. Just enough to keep me from starving. He'd bring water. Sometimes he'd bring books or magazines, like he was doing me a favor. He'd talk about his plans, about how once he collected on some insurance money from a previous scheme, we'd be able to move on, start fresh somewhere else. Did he mention other women? Yes, he bragged about it sometimes, about how many women he'd conned, how much money he'd made, how easy it was. He said I was different, though. He said he actually liked me, that he might keep me around longer than the others. Did he ever say what happened to the others? He implied that when he was done with them, they disappeared, that they either gave up and went home broken, or they didn't go home at all. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Derek Chen's lawyer objected, saying this was hearsay, but the judge allowed it as testimony to state of mind. Janet Reardon asked, "What did you think when he said that?" I thought I was going to die in that villa. I thought I'd never see my daughter again, never hold my husband again, never get to apologize to my family for what I'd done. Why didn't you try to escape? I did try, once. I managed to break a window and climb out. I made it about half a mile before Derek found me. He beat me. Not badly enough to do permanent damage, but badly enough that I knew better than to try again. And then he told me something that made me stop fighting completely. What did he tell you? Vanessa looked directly at Derek for the first time. He stared back, his face impassive. He said he had people watching my family. He showed me pictures of Lily at preschool, of Marcus at work, of my mother-in-law at the grocery store. He said if I tried to escape again, if I tried to contact anyone, something would happen to Lily. He said accidents happen to little girls all the time. The courtroom erupted. The judge had to call for order. Derek's lawyer was on his feet, objecting furiously, but the damage was done. Everyone in that courtroom now understood the full scope of Derek Chen's cruelty. "Did you believe his threat?" Janet Riordan asked quietly. "Yes," Vanessa whispered. "Yes, I believed him, so I stopped fighting. I just existed. I waited. I prayed someone would find me, but I didn't believe anyone actually would." What happened the day the police arrived? "I heard vehicles outside, lots of them. Then someone was banging on the door, shouting in Spanish. The door broke open and there were police everywhere. I thought maybe Derek had finally decided to kill me, that he'd hired people to make it look like a police raid. I couldn't believe it was real. But it was real. Yes, they took me to the hospital. They asked me questions. They told me my husband was coming, that my daughter was safe, that Derek had been arrested. I kept asking if they were sure, if Lily was really safe. They showed me photos. My mother-in-law with Lily, both of them smiling. And I broke down." Janet Riordan let that moment breathe. Then she asked, "Mrs. Coleman, if you could go back and change what you did, would you?" "Every single second of every single day," Vanessa said, tears streaming down her face. "I would give anything to undo what I did, to have stayed with my family, to have gotten therapy instead of running away, to have been strong enough to resist Derek's manipulation. But I can't change it. All I can do is live with it and try to be better and hope that someday my daughter will understand that I never stopped loving her. Even when I left, even when I was trapped in that villa, I never stopped loving her." The defense attorney examined her, trying to paint her as a willing participant, as someone who'd planned to defraud her husband, who'd gone with Derek voluntarily. But Vanessa held steady. She admitted her mistakes, her poor judgment, her initial willingness to leave. But she also made clear that what happened after she left was not what she'd agreed to, not what she'd wanted. When she finally stepped down from the witness stand, she looked exhausted. Marcus met her at the gate, pulling her into his arms. I saw her collapse against him, finally allowing herself to break down completely. The trial continued for another 2 weeks. Other victims testified, women Derek had conned, isolated, abandoned. The financial evidence was overwhelming. Derek Chen had stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years. He'd ruined lives, destroyed families, and shown not an ounce of remorse for any of it. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts: kidnapping, extortion, fraud, assault, theft. The list went on and on. At sentencing, the judge was scathing. "Mr. Chen, you are a predator in the truest sense of the word. You hunt vulnerable people, you manipulate them, you isolate them, and you destroy them for your own profit. You have shown no remorse, no recognition of the harm you've caused. I can only hope that the years you spend in prison will give you time to reflect on what you've done, though I doubt they will." Derek Chen was sentenced to 45 years in federal prison. With his record and the severity of the crimes, he wouldn't be eligible for parole for at least 30 years. He'd be 74 years old if he ever got out. As they led him away in handcuffs, he looked back at Vanessa one last time. I expected to see anger or hatred in his eyes. Instead, I saw nothing, just emptiness, like there was no real person inside that shell at all, just a void that consumed everyone who got too close. Outside the courthouse, reporters crowded around us, shouting questions. "Mrs. Coleman, how does it feel to see your abuser sentenced? Mr. Coleman, do you forgive your wife? Will your marriage survive this?" Marcus put his arm around Vanessa, shielding her from the cameras. "My wife is a survivor," he said clearly, "and our family is healing. That's all we have to say." We pushed through the crowd to our car. Once we were inside, doors locked, windows up, Vanessa finally let herself cry. Not the quiet tears she'd been shedding all through the trial, but deep, wrenching sobs that seemed to come from the very core of her being. "It's over," Marcus said, holding her. "It's really over." But we all knew it wasn't. Not really. The legal case was over, Derek was locked away, but the healing, that would take years, maybe a lifetime. 6 months after the trial, I stood in Marcus and Vanessa's kitchen making breakfast while they got Lily ready for her first day of pre-K. The house felt different now. Lighter somehow, though the shadows hadn't completely lifted. They probably never would. Vanessa came downstairs with Lily, who was wearing her new backpack with pride. Vanessa looked healthier. She'd gained back most of the weight she'd lost. Her hair was longer and shiny again, and there was color in her cheeks. But her eyes still held that wariness, that constant vigilance of someone who'd learned the hard way that safety is an illusion. "You ready for your big day?" I asked Lily, handing her a plate of pancakes cut into the shape of a star. "I'm ready," Lily declared. "I'm going to learn so many things." Marcus came in, straightening his tie. He was heading back to work full-time now after months of reduced hours. The firm had been understanding, but bills needed to be paid and life needed to move forward. He kissed Vanessa's forehead, then Lily's. My two favorite girls, both starting new adventures today. Vanessa was starting her first day back at her photography studio, too. She'd kept the business running minimally while she was gone. Her assistant had handled a few small jobs, but she'd been terrified to reopen it fully. Terrified that clients wouldn't want to work with her anymore, that the scandal would have destroyed her reputation. But slowly, carefully, she'd started reaching out to old clients. And to her surprise, most of them had been supportive, understanding even. "I'm nervous," Vanessa admitted, picking at her own breakfast. "What if I can't do it anymore? What if I've forgotten how?" "You're one of the most talented photographers I know," Marcus said firmly. "You've got this." After they left, Marcus to drop Lily at school and head to the office, Vanessa to open her studio, I found myself alone in their house. I'd been staying with them on and off for months, helping out when they needed it, giving them space when they didn't. But it was time for me to go back to my own life, my own home. They were healing. They were finding their way back to each other. They didn't need me hovering anymore. I was loading the dishwasher when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Patricia Coleman?" A woman's voice, professional but warm. "Yes, who's calling?" "My name is Dr. Rebecca Sanders. I'm a trauma psychologist here in Portland, and I've been following your daughter-in-law's case. I was wondering if you might have time to meet with me this week. I'm putting together a program for families affected by domestic manipulation and coercive control, and I think your perspective could be invaluable." I sat down heavily on the couch. "My perspective? You were instrumental in finding Vanessa. You recognized the signs, you trusted your instincts, you took action. That's remarkable. I'd like to learn from your experience, and possibly have you speak to other families who are going through similar situations." I thought about it, about those 3 months of not knowing where Vanessa was, of watching Marcus and Lily suffer, of the moment I'd gotten Emma's call. "Yes," I said finally. "Yes, I'd like that." We met for coffee 2 days later. Dr. Sanders was a woman in her early 50s with kind eyes and an easy manner. She explained her program, support groups for families of coercive control victims, educational workshops about manipulation tactics, advocacy work for better laws and protections. "The thing is," she said, stirring sugar into her latte, "most people don't understand how this happens. They think victims are stupid or weak or asking for it. But the reality is that predators like Derek Chen are extraordinarily skilled at what they do. They study human psychology, they identify vulnerabilities, and they exploit them with surgical precision. Anyone can become a victim under the right circumstances." I thought about Vanessa, about how she'd been a loving mother and wife one day and gone the next. "She wasn't weak," I said. "She was lonely. There's a difference." "Exactly. And that loneliness, that vulnerability, it's normal, it's human. But our society treats it like a moral failing. We tell people to just be stronger, to have better boundaries, to see the red flags. But when you're in the middle of being manipulated, those red flags look like green lights." We talked for over 2 hours. By the end, I'd agreed to co-facilitate a monthly support group for mothers and mothers-in-law of coercive control victims. Women who, like me, had watched someone they loved disappear into an abusive relationship and didn't know how to help. The first meeting was held in a church basement on a rainy Thursday evening. 7 women showed up, ranging in age from their 30s to their 70s. Each one had a story that made my heart ache. There was Linda, whose daughter had married a man who slowly isolated her from her entire family. They hadn't spoken in 3 years. There was Janice, whose son's girlfriend had convinced him to move across the country and cut off all contact with his toxic family. Janice hadn't met her 2-year-old grandson. There was Mai, whose daughter-in-law had taken out credit cards in her son's name and racked up over $100,000 in debt before disappearing. Each story was different, but the patterns were the same: isolation, manipulation, control, and families left behind, desperate for answers, desperate for their loved ones to come home. I shared Vanessa's story, not all the details, but enough for them to understand. The thing that saved her, I said, was that I didn't give up, even when Marcus wanted to believe she'd just left, even when the easier thing would have been to respect her wishes and leave her alone. I kept looking. I trusted my instincts that something was wrong. But how did you know? Linda asked. How did you know she hadn't just left voluntarily? I didn't, I admitted, not for sure, but there were things that didn't add up. The timing, the coldness of that note, the way she'd withdrawn money, it felt orchestrated. And then when I found Derek's social media, when I saw the pattern of behavior, I knew someone had gotten to her. What if we're wrong? May asked quietly. What if our kids really do just want to be away from us? What if we're the problem? Dr. Sanders stepped in. That's a question every family member asks themselves. And the truth is, sometimes relationships are genuinely unhealthy and distance is necessary. But there are key differences between someone making a healthy choice to set boundaries and someone being coercively controlled. Healthy boundaries are clear, consistent, and allow for communication. Coercive control involves sudden changes, isolation from multiple relationships, not just one, financial manipulation, and fear-based decision-making. We worked through a checklist together, warning signs to watch for, ways to maintain connection even when someone was pulling away, resources for intervention. It was overwhelming and heartbreaking and necessary. After the meeting, Linda approached me. Can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you forgive your daughter-in-law? For leaving? For putting your family through all that? I thought carefully about my answer. I don't think forgiveness is the right word. Vanessa didn't set out to hurt anyone. She was manipulated into making terrible choices. What I feel is compassion. Compassion for what she endured, compassion for the fact that she has to live with those choices forever, and hope that she can forgive herself, because that's the hardest part. Linda's eyes filled with tears. I'm so angry at my daughter for pushing us away, for choosing this man over her family, but I also miss her so much. It physically hurts. Those feelings can coexist, I told her gently. You can be angry and heartbroken at the same time. You can love someone and hate their choices. That's the complexity of being human. As I drove home that night, I thought about all the families torn apart by people like Derek Chen. All the Vanessas out there trapped and terrified and convinced they had no way out. All the Marcuses left behind to pick up the pieces and explain to small children why mommy wasn't coming home. The support group became a regular part of my life. Once a month, sometimes twice, we'd meet and share our stories, our fears, our small victories. Linda eventually reconnected with her daughter after the daughter's husband was arrested for domestic violence. Janice was still waiting, still hoping her son would reach out. May's son had filed for bankruptcy and was slowly rebuilding his life. Meanwhile, Vanessa continued her own healing journey. Her photography business was thriving again. She'd found a niche photographing other trauma survivors, women coming out of abusive relationships, families reuniting after years apart, people reclaiming their lives. Her work had a depth and empathy it hadn't had before, an understanding of pain and resilience that came from having lived it. She and Marcus went to couples therapy every week. They'd had to rebuild trust from the ground up, relearn how to communicate, figure out how to be partners again, rather than victim and rescuer. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks and arguments and nights when Vanessa slept in the guest room because she couldn't handle the intimacy of sharing a bed. But there were good moments, too. Family dinners where everyone actually laughed. Lily's school plays where Vanessa sat in the front row with tears streaming down her face, so grateful to be there to witness her daughter growing up. Date nights where Marcus and Vanessa would try to just be a couple again, not trauma survivors, not people working through the situation, just two people who loved each other. One evening, about a year after the trial, I was at their house for dinner. Lily was in bed and Vanessa was cleaning up the kitchen while Marcus and I sat at the table with coffee. "Mom," Marcus said suddenly, "I never thanked you properly." "For what?" "For not giving up. For finding her when I'd already started to let go." His voice was thick with emotion. I was so angry at Vanessa for leaving that I'd almost convinced myself she deserved whatever happened to her, that she'd made her choice, and I needed to protect Lily and move on. But you never stopped believing she needed help. "I didn't do it alone," I reminded him. "Emma Chen reached out. The police did the actual finding. I just paid attention to what my gut was telling me. Still, if you hadn't found that storage unit, if you hadn't contacted the police, Vanessa would still be in that villa. Or worse." He looked over at his wife, who was loading the dishwasher with methodical precision. I would have lost her forever. Lily would have lost her mother. Vanessa turned around, wiping her hands on a dish towel. You know what the therapist asked me last week? She asked me what I learned from all this, and I realized. I learned that running away from your problems doesn't solve anything. It just creates new, worse problems. Profound, Marcus said with a small smile. Shut up, Vanessa said, but she was smiling too. I'm serious, though. I was so focused on what I was missing, on what I didn't have, that I couldn't see what I did have. I had a husband who loved me, a daughter who needed me, a career I enjoyed. But I convinced myself I was trapped, that I was suffocating, that I needed to escape. And Derek? He fed into that. He made escaping seem not just possible, but necessary. She came and sat down at the table with us. The truth is, I was depressed. I needed therapy and probably medication and definitely some major life changes. But instead of doing the hard work of fixing what was wrong, I chose the fantasy, the easy answer. And I nearly died because of it. You didn't die, though, I said softly. You survived, and now you're here, doing the hard work, making the life changes. That takes more courage than running ever did. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. Some days I still can't believe Marcus didn't leave me, that he took me back after everything. Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. I love you. I've always loved you, even when I was furious at you, even when I thought you'd just abandoned us. I still loved you. Love doesn't just turn off. They sat there, hands clasped, and I saw the fragile bridge they'd built between them. It wasn't the same as before. It couldn't be. Too much had happened, too much had been broken. But it was something. It was a start. Later that night, after I'd said goodbye and driven home, I found myself thinking about Derek Chen. Was he sitting in his prison cell feeling any remorse? Did he think about Vanessa, about all the other women he'd hurt? Or had he already moved on, already planning his next con for when he eventually got out? I'd learned in my years as a therapist that some people simply don't have the capacity for empathy or remorse. They're wired differently, motivated by self-interest alone. Derek was probably one of those people. He'd seen Vanessa not as a person but as a resource to be exploited, and when she'd stopped being useful, he'd have discarded her without a second thought. But he'd failed. That was the important thing. He'd tried to break Vanessa, tried to destroy her family, tried to add her to his list of victims who simply disappeared. And he'd failed because people cared enough to keep looking, to trust their instincts, to take action. I thought about my support group, about all those mothers and mothers-in-law still searching for their loved ones. About Linda, whose daughter was safe now. About Janice, still waiting. About all the families torn apart by manipulators and predators. The work wasn't over. It would never be over. But every person rescued, every family reunited, every predator locked away, it mattered. It all mattered. 2 years after Vanessa came home, Lily started first grade. She was a bright, happy 6-year-old who loved art and reading and playing with her friends. She had some memories of when Mommy was gone, but they were fading, being replaced by new memories of family movie nights and birthday parties and weekend trips to the zoo. Vanessa had been asked to speak at a conference on coercive control. She was terrified, but Marcus and I both encouraged her to do it. Your story could help someone, I told her. Someone out there might hear it and realize they're in danger. Or someone might realize their loved one is in danger. Your pain could save someone else's life. She agreed, and I went with her to the conference for moral support. The ballroom was packed. Social workers, therapists, law enforcement, advocates. Vanessa stood at the podium in a simple black dress, her hands shaking as she gripped the edges of the lectern. My name is Vanessa Coleman, she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. And 2.5 years ago, I made the worst decision of my life. I left my husband and my 3-year-old daughter because a man I'd met online convinced me that I deserved more than the life I had. She told her story, all of it, the loneliness, the manipulation, the villa, the rescue. She didn't shy away from her own culpability, from the choices she'd made that led her into Derek's trap. But she also made clear that those choices had been made under duress, under the influence of someone who was very skilled at psychological manipulation. I want to be clear about something, she said toward the end of her speech. I am responsible for my actions. I chose to engage with Derek. I chose to leave my family. I chose to believe his lies. Those were my choices and I own them. But I also want you to understand that those choices were not made freely. they were made under the influence of systematic psychological manipulation. I was groomed, isolated, and controlled. And by the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. She paused, looking out at the audience. If you're a professional working with families, please understand that victims of coercive control are not weak or stupid. They're normal people who are targeted by predators. Treat them with compassion. Help them understand what happened to them without blaming them for it. And if you're someone who's worried about a loved one, if you see the signs of manipulation and control, trust your instincts. Don't wait. Don't assume they'll figure it out on their own. Take action. Make the call. Do the research. Because I promise you, the person being controlled isn't going to ask for help. They don't even realize they need it. Someone else has to see it, and someone else has to act. The applause when she finished was thunderous. Afterwards, people lined up to talk to her, to thank her, to share their own stories. A woman in her 20s told Vanessa that she'd been in a relationship just like Vanessa described, and hearing the story had helped her understand that it wasn't her fault. A social worker told Vanessa that she'd be using the story in her training sessions for new caseworkers. A detective said it had given him new perspective on cases he was working. On the drive home, Vanessa was quiet. Finally, she said, "Thank you for pushing me to do that. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also, it felt important, like maybe something good could come from something so terrible." That's how healing works, I told her. We transform our pain into purpose. We use what hurt us to help others. That's how we take back power from the people who tried to destroy us. Marcus and Vanessa renewed their vows on their 10th anniversary. It was a small ceremony in their backyard, just close family and a few friends. Lily was the flower girl, beaming with pride in her purple dress. Vanessa's parents were there, having rebuilt their relationship with her over the past few years. Marcus's whole family came, all of them having worked through the complicated feelings about what happened. As I watched them exchange new rings, not to replace the old ones, but to symbolize this new chapter, I thought about everything that had brought them to this moment. The pain, the betrayal, the rescue, the healing, the countless therapy sessions and difficult conversations and moments of despair. But they'd made it. They'd survived something that destroys most couples. And while they'd never be the same as they were before, they were something new, something stronger in a way. Something built on truth and understanding rather than assumption and complacency. In his vows, Marcus said, "I promise to never stop fighting for us, to never give up even when things get hard, to always believe that you're worth fighting for." In her vows, Vanessa said, "I promise to never run again, to face our problems together instead of alone, to remember that real freedom isn't found in escape, but in authentic connection." There wasn't a dry eye in the backyard. That night, after everyone had gone home and Lily was asleep, I sat on my own porch with a cup of tea and thought about the past 3 years. About the phone call at 2 a.m. that had started everything. About finding that storage unit, about Emma Chen's courage in reaching out, about the police raid in Puerto Vallarta. About all the small moments and decisions that had led to Vanessa coming home alive. I thought about Derek Chen rotting in prison, his string of victims finally stopped. I thought about my support group, about the families still searching for their loved ones, about the work still to be done, the awareness still to be raised, the predators still out there looking for their next victim. But I also thought about Lily, safe and happy and loved. About Marcus and Vanessa, rebuilding their life together. About healing, about resilience, about the human capacity to survive unimaginable things and still find joy on the other side. The work wasn't over. It would never be over. But tonight, in this moment, there was peace, there was family, there was love. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's everything.